we have with us on the line now Mr. Gary Griffith. Gary, how are you?
Oh, fine, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Griffith.
Yeah, well, you know, it's in the
Hi.
village with the Dad Triplets on WZYE 95.9 FM. We have Uncle Tommy, we have The Storm, and yours truly, Professor Wall Street. So, Mr. Griffith, the reason why we call you, right? We saw you put out, we heard, by the way, Mr. Griffith, are you still,
Yes.
you will call us soldier. What's your take on that? You will call us soldier.
Well, it shows the ignorance of the individual. It seems that he believes that being a soldier is something negative. We need to educate this prime minister who seems totally clueless in understanding leadership. If you look at United States, the great United States, you all had 45 presidents, 31 of the 45 had military service. The concept of Kid Rowley not understanding that being a military officer provides the aspects of proper leadership to probably lead one of the most powerful countries in the world. 31 out of the 45. I don't think any US president was a geologist as he is. So his forte is massage rocks and stones. And he has the audacity to question my issue of being a soldier. And I'm proud of being a soldier. I spent 17 years in the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. I was trained in one of the best military academies in the world, the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst. The youngest officer to serve in the attempted coup. I was the first Trinidad and Tobago soldier to return home with a UN peacekeeping medal. I have worked with as the right hand to two prime ministers and a president, the only soldier that was the right hand to prime ministers and presidents in Trinidad and Tobago. And because of my impeccable service, I got a national medal of merit from the president. So that played a big part towards me moving forward to be a Minister of National Security and Commissioner of Police. He probably seems clueless into understanding the value of someone who was a soldier. So I'm very proud to state that I was in one of the most noble of all professions anywhere in the world, that being a soldier.
Tell him, Mr. Griffith, tell him.
What is the current position regarding the crime talks between the government and the opposition? Are you still part of it, or you're not part of it? What's the position with that?
Well, you really can't be part of something that has never started. The fact of the matter is that I started the ball rolling early in the year when I offered to help the government because they seemed clueless. They did not know what to do. Crime was spiraling. Blood, our streets were being washed in blood. Kamala Prasad Bisesa agreed, and she said she is supporting me on that. She would like to do the same. And that is when Keith Rowley said, nope, it's not going to happen. I despise those people. I don't want to talk with them. Then he realized how it was looking in the eyes of the public. So he tried a charade by trying to pretend that he was interested in the crime talk. So let me tell you what happened. One, he then decided to set an agenda. You can't set an agenda in something that both the government and the opposition were supposed to meet together, but you decide to set your own agenda without the input of the opposition. Two, your agenda is specifically about legislation. This is not a subcommittee of Parliament, Keith Rowley. This is about political parties getting together, putting minds together to come up with proper policies. Bills and legislation and so forth is a very small percentage in dealing with crime fighting. But he decided to turn it into a subcommittee in Parliament. Three, he decided to say, we will have 5 and you all will have 4. He's out of place. So he wanted to have a majority to decide to cast a vote. And it shows that this was something not a level playing field at all. 4, he decides to have the Attorney General write to the opposition leader. The Attorney General is fastened out of place. 5, the Attorney General then gives a deadline to the opposition leader, as if he is a political leader of a party. 6, more importantly, Keith Rowley always continues to boast that he's the chair of, I'm the chair of the National Security Council, I'm the chair of the National Security Council. He says that more than saying that he's the Prime Minister. And now the one time for you to step up to show the importance of being the chair of the National Security Council, you're having a National Security Council meet with the opposition, but you don't want to be there. It shows the individual, the laziness, the incompetence, and what makes it worse, all of this, he is bitter that Gary Griffith might be there. So he prefers not to swallow his pride, not to swallow his ego, and do what is right to help the country. Patrick Manning said it to everyone listening. The man, when he does not have his way, you see hate, you see anger, you see somebody totally out of control. The PNM collapsed in 2010 primarily because of this individual not having his way. That is why Patrick Manning was forced to call a snap election. And now he has operated in the same way. The country is drowning in blood. And because of your pettiness, your small-mindedness, you decide, well, if Gary Griffith is in it, well, we're going to shut it down. I hope everyone abroad and in Toronto will understand the mentality of this individual now.
Gary, what about the recent thing in the news regarding the police meeting with gang members? You know,
Well, I think, yeah, I think that was rather unfortunate. A few police officers have come after and said it is not true, but obviously the newspaper wouldn't do a headline article unless obviously certain police officers may have done that. What it is really, the saying in Trinidad, monkey see, monkey do. This is what the PNM have done on numerous occasions. They take criminals, gang leaders, they refer to them as community leaders, they give them state contracts, they negotiate with them, they plead with them, pretty please, can you stop committing crime? And then they give them $5 million contracts to build a box that costs $500,000. The gangs then use the funds not to help the community, but to be able to purchase more sophisticated firearms, even more sophisticated than the police. They hire more gang members, put hits on other gang members to get their state contracts, and use the profit towards paying off our corrupt members in law enforcement. That is how the PNM they've operated. They've done it time and time again. As the commissioner of police, I saw it. I said it should not be done. We had persons as quote-unquote community leaders go into the president's house for the inauguration ceremony when the PNM got into office. That is it. So it may be that certain police officers said, well, listen, if the government does it, if they see that is the way to go, well, then let us do the same. It is unfortunate, the same way that in the United States, you all do not negotiate with terrorists. As a commissioner of police, as a minister of national security, I stand firm on that. When you play with filthy animals, you will get fleas. When you negotiate with these individuals, there's going to be a price to pay. And I think it's unfortunate that police officers could think that your job is to act as some type of a counselor and negotiator to try to ask persons, pretty please do not commit crime.
So, Mr. Griffith, what do you propose as a resolution to this problem that we are facing here with the gang members?
Gary, you said,
well, exactly what I did. Exactly what I did. Sorry?
He said, what do you propose? Tommy was asking the question.
Yeah. What I propose is exactly what I did as Commissioner of Police. It took me 18 months to transform the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. By doing that, I put systems to measure performance, make them accountable, maintain proper leadership, good management. By doing that, public confidence and trust in the police service moved from 14% in 2018 when I took over. And then when I left, it was 59%. 1 year later, when they unplugged every single thing I did, it has gone back down to 8% from 59%. Thanks to Keith Rowley. He is responsible. So what I did is what caused crime to go down from number 1 to number 4 behind health, education, and the economy. It is now back up to number 1. And what I did is what caused it to be the highest reduction in violent crime in Trinidad and Tobago in 17 years. Putting systems in place such as the Emergency Response Patrol, the Operational Command Center, the Commissioner's Command Center, the Special Operation Response Team, the Gender-Based Violence Unit, the Social Media Monitoring Unit, technology, online reporting, app reporting, GPS tracking on police vehicles, measuring how they get to a crime scene, so that making sure that they get there in less than 5 minutes, which provided a deterrent, high visibility, a rapid response. There were over 120 policies I put in place that peg back the criminals. It put fear into the criminals. That is what put an end to kidnapping in Trinidad and Tobago for the first time ever, because kidnappers were actually being arrested. That was never done before. Before, the police would just pay the ransom money and the person, hopefully the victim, will be released. We started raiding, breaking out into doors, finding the kidnappers because of technology. When persons had home invasions, by the time they jump over the wall, we are waiting on you. That is where you got the few moments later. We were able to be one ahead of the criminals. We did something known as predictive policing, anticipating and getting the information in advance. I got this from NYPD. They showed me how to do it via social media monitoring, via having covert units operating within the police service that even the police didn't know about, reading out the rogue elements in the police service, polygraph testing and so forth. All of these things, Keith Rowley's government shut it down, dismantled, removed every single thing that pegged back the gangs. That is why my last year, the number of murders was 342. It was the lowest number of murders in any given year in about 17 years. And then within a year after I left, it moved from 342 to over 600, almost double. Keith Rowley is responsible for that. It is his doing. So if it is that we want to change, I said, look, the country can't wait for another 15 months until Keith Rowley is removed from government. Let us help them because the country is drowning in blood. The man has refused. So all that is required, in summary, is to reboot, reignite, and reassemble, and the gangs will start pegging back.
Mr. Griffith, how are you doing, sir?
Go ahead.
How are you doing, sir? You mentioned that Dr. Rowley dismantled all these positive, policies and things that you put in place. So, can we then assume or decipher and say, well, he is promoting and this culture, then he's allowing this culture to fester, and then you say, we heard where what's his name, Minister Hines, says it is not his job to keep the country safe. What's going on? What's going on inside there?
Sorry?
Yeah, what can you tell me what's going on with these people who were elected by the taxpayers to do precisely what they say they're not responsible for? What?
Yeah, and the reason being is that Fitzgerald Hines has proven to be the most incompetent minister, not of national security, minister in the country's history. The man does not know his job. When you're a minister of national security, you say it is not your job to be responsible for the safety and security of the country. It is not your job to put in policies. It shows how the man is clueless. And the reason being, to all, I was the Minister of National Security. In my last year as Minister of National Security, it was the highest reduction in serious crime in 30 years. Because I realized the job of the minister is to implement policies, and then the police and other units will operationalize those policies. So that is why I formed, as the Minister of National Security, the National Operations Center, ensuring you have that proper coordination for any natural or man-made disaster, similar to what New York did after 9/11, making sure you can get immediately an operational team on the ground. You have a command center, a venue operations center, and having systems we put in, such as a National Security Special Operation Group, a National Security Training Academy,
a National Incident Management System, center, yeah.
As soon as the government changed, they shut down and dismantled everything the same way. So if a Minister of National Security doesn't understand, those are the things that I would have done in just my 18 months as Security Minister. This man is there for nearly 4 years, and he has not done a thing, not one policy. All he does as the Minister of National Security is to bad talk the UNC, similar to his boss. So their job is to attack, discredit, bad talk, smear character, assassinate. That is not how you lead. Your job as a leader is to unite, to build, to be productive, not to cause hate and division. I continue to say it. You can't expect to want to lead a country when it is you continue to show that you hate half of the country.
Gary,
Mr. Griffith.
What about
Yes,
the body cameras that we haven't actually seen police using as yet, which is something that's very significant here in the United States of America? What happened to all the body cameras that were purchased?
Again, guess who purchased them? For the first time in Trinidad and Tobago police history, Gary Griffith got the body cameras. For the first time in their history, they got tasers, they got pepper spray. So the minimum use of force policy, we train them in from verbal persuasion, calling for backup with radios, then making sure you have the body cameras, then you have the tasers, you have the pepper spray, and the firearm in your last resort. All of those things I put in place, that has all been removed. The body cameras, it was a standard operational procedure. Once you come out of your vehicle, you must turn on your camera. Once you're on a foot patrol, you must turn on your camera. Once you have a warrant on operation, you must turn on your camera. All of those things have been done. So when I mentioned 120 plus policies, that has also been shut down. It was the first time this was introduced. Additionally, it wasn't just body cameras, because it's something that NYPD, they were shocked. They never saw that before. We put real-time cameras with real-time video footage on the vehicles that is being fed back to an operational command center. So that ensures that we are in a war room watching what is going on. So the police officer, while he's in some situation, whether it is a riot or arresting someone, we can actually see back at the ranch to ensure whether it is you need to back up, whether you need fire service, whether you need more police officers. That is the type of technology we put in. They pull the plug on all of those things. So the The cameras put in real-time video footage back to the operational command center. The tasers, the pepper spray, the body cameras, the GPS tracking on the police vehicles to ensure that they stay in their area of responsibility, so that we will make sure anytime there's a distress call, we could look at the vehicle in closest proximity to have those vehicles report to the scene, which is why you had a less than a 5-minute response, which is why the criminals were concerned, because they knew that a vehicle will show up anytime. All of these things were shut down and dismantled because of a vindictive, if not incompetent government.
Mr. Griffith, I asked you a question and
Yes,
you gave me some answers prior as to how you would resolve some of the issues. But in my humble opinion, based on what I see up here in the United States, not just in New York City, but even in my city here, that community policing was probably one of the most important initiatives taken. I do remember it is like putting boots on the ground, where you would have police persons just walking through the community 24/7.
Yeah, and again, that was one of the 120 plus policies. So it wasn't just about hard targeting. It wasn't just about primary crime prevention. So we had the rapid response, the high visibility, the deterrent, the heavy policing. That was there, and it pegged back the criminals. But we also had what was known, quite rightly, as you said, secondary crime prevention. We got this from NYPD. When I signed that agreement between the TTPS and the NYPD, that also has collapsed. There's no negotiation, no dialogue, no training, no advice we get from NYPD again. After I put it all in place, I went up to New York City. I met with the NYPD Commissioner of Police. We shook hands. We signed the document. I met with Giuliani and partners. They came to Trinidad and Tobago. They set up the gender-based violence unit for us. They showed us how to do community policing. Community policing was very powerful system when I was Commissioner of Police. And it wasn't just about police officers walking in the neighborhood. It involved something known as the Commissioner's Cup, where we use sport as an avenue to turn young persons away from a life of crime. So using football or soccer, as you guys will call it, after we comprehensively defeated the USA 2-1 last night, just by the way. But that's another story.
Yes.
So correct, yeah. So anyway, and so we had the Commissioner's Cup, where we got all of the different communities. So whereas they were warring and they were gangs versus gangs in different communities, all of a sudden the youngsters in the under 16, under 18 playing football together, soccer, and the gang members are now on the sideline watching each other, watching their kids play, and it started to build a degree. It started to unify a community, unify a village, unify a region, unify a country. That is done through sport. That has been shut down after I left. I developed the only AstroTurf in the Southern Caribbean at the police barracks. For 2 years, they have refused to give it to the young persons at no cost, which is the intention, because that is taxpayers' money paid for it. Out of bad mind, that artificial surface in St. James has not been used. I then had formed something called Crossroads, 1,000 police officers being trained to act as a big brother or sister to 1,000 at-risk youths, rather than send them to prison or send them to some location where it is that they will get they might become more hardened criminals in the future. All of these things they've shut down, they've dismantled. So that concept of community policing was very powerful up until August 2021. And then Keith Rowley and the PNM government said, shut down, dismantle, destroy every single thing Gary Griffith did. Long live the PNM.
Gary, what about polygraph and drug testing as a way to weed out corrupted police officers? I know the Minister of National Security recently talked about that initiative. What is your take on that?
Yeah, because that's all they do, talk. When I was Commissioner of Police, again, I will continue to speak of the 120 plus. That was done for the first time, because we realized that there were corrupt police officers. There were officers who we realized that they were involved in some degree of criminal activity by aiding and abetting, associating themselves with criminals, supporting them, protecting them, covering their drug blocks, and especially on the dealing with border protection, where some of the police stations on the Southwestern Peninsula, it seemed that police officers were on the take, allowing or turning a blind eye for the illegal entry of drugs, weapons, and human trafficking from the mainland. So what I did, I asked a simple question of a polygraph question to all of those officers. Do you financially benefit from illegal drugs, weapons, or human trafficking? And if it is you refused, well, then you'll be transferred. I can't take action. And that played a big part of us removing the rogue elements in the Southwestern Peninsula. And then also certain officers who I was aware involved in certain matters, we will use that to have them removed and from certain locations. Guess what? As soon as I left as commissioner, all of the officers who were reassigned based on intelligence showing them being involved in particular activities, they were put back in the same location. So it showed that the criminal elements in the police service took back full control. And that is what some of them wanted, which is why they whispered in the ears of some of the politicians in the PNM and they took the bait. And who it is that's suffering now? The law-abiding citizens. So that aspect of polygraph tested, drug tested, it was done in a very big basis. When I was commissioner of police, it was used comprehensively as well for specific units such as the special branch, the SIU, also the Special Operational Response Team. But again, it was a Gary Griffith thing, so shut it down. Let's not use it again.
You know, simply right. I had done an editorial on some innovative ideas could help reduce crime in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Number one was community policing. I think you touched on that. Number two was technology. What about technology?
Well, again, the technology I use, as I said, never before kidnappers were being held. We started arresting kidnappers whilst they had victims in their possession. That never happened before in Trinidad and Tobago. And the kidnappers couldn't understand how the heck we were able to kick down doors, intercept vehicles, whilst the victims were in the vehicles, in the homes as well. That never happened before. Before Gary Griffith, they will be kidnapping, they will ask for the ransom, the police will help them pay the ransom, and hopefully the victim will be returned. We started pinpointing where the kidnappers were holding the victims and going after them and apprehending them. That never happened before. That is the type of technology that we had. The technology I put in, such as the online reporting, making sure that citizens can actually go online, make a report instead of having to go to a station. That has also been removed. By it being removed, the 13-year-old girl goes to a police station, has to make a report about an incident, and then by the time she comes out, she is killed. And because every police officer will know that you don't have persons under domestic violence having to go to a police station to make a report. That is what the online reporting is about. The police app we had, it was the largest app in the history of Trinidad and Tobago in that year. They shut it down because Gary Griffith did it. We had an SOS on the phones of persons after you put the app. So if it is that you're being robbed, raped, kidnapped, you press that SOS, we can lock onto your phone and be able to assist you. They shut that down as well. This cannot be incompetence, This has to be somebody involved in the criminal underworld going out of their way to assist the criminals after the fact that I was doing all the things you spoke about, community policing, technology, body cameras, every single thing you all speak about, it was done because I piggybacked from the NYPD. I saw what they did by transforming the NYPD and I did the same with the TTPS. The NYPD were known as pigs in the 90s, they became known as America's finest. And that is what I did with the TTPS because I had to transform that Trinidad and Tobago police service for people to believe in them, trust in them. I got the police officers to start believing in themselves, trusting themselves, lifting morale, lifting motivation. It worked. The criminals were being pegged back. That has all been shut down thanks to Keith Christopher Rowley.
And just another one was youth programs. You talked about that, right? I'm just going over these. I did this editorial and what about Neighborhood Watch? Neighborhood Watch program.
Well, again, as Commissioner of Police, we had the the Minister of National Security. I formed the Community Comfort Patrol, which was actually utilizing private security to work in line with the police service. It played a very big part to peg back criminal elements because it provided that high visibility and that rapid response. Also, that operational command center. That operational command center ensured that the 17,000 cameras around Trinidad and Tobago, we can monitor what is happening in real time. So if at any time there's an incident, we can see where that vehicle was going, where they were heading off to, get the other police vehicles to intercept it. All of those things have been shut down, and that is unfortunate. So again, even that as well, we had implemented, but it was shut down.
And last two for me, Gary. And this is just for my editorial, right? Community service and victim support. I mean, community service in encouraging offenders to perform community service as a way to make amends for their crime, and victim support, providing support services to victims of crime to help them recover and reduce the likelihood of retaliation? That's the last
Yeah,
one.
well, no, that goes more in line with the Minister of National Security, and that's why I drafted the Ministry of Justice when the People's Partnership came into government. It wasn't implemented as it should have been because I drafted that Ministry of Justice because that Ministry of Justice is so critical. We have one of the highest recidivism rates in the Americas, based on poor rehabilitation. So you take a young person, send them into prison, they come out a more seasoned hardened criminal. They have persons going to prison in remand and they spend 8 years odd for a crime where the maximum sentence could be 6 years. It is unbelievable. It does not work. So that is something that can only be done not from a commissioner of police level, but more of a ministerial level. But the Minister of National Security says it's not his job to implement policies. I already have the template for that, what you spoke about, as it pertains to victims. Again, when I formed the Child Protection Unit as the Minister of National Security. I formed the Gender-Based Violence Unit as the Commissioner of Police. We revamped the Victims and Witness Support Unit in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. All of these things played a very big part towards letting people feel comfortable, not be intimidated, given information to the police, and be able to target criminals and offenders. Unfortunately, as I said, every single thing that you can think of that may be done or considered to reduce crime, I did it. It was implemented. It worked. So it wasn't just a one-shot that Guy Griffith did. There were over 120 policies, programs, units, technology, training that we put in place. Every single thing. The PNM went out of their way and said anybody he hired, any technology he used, any vehicle, all of these things were shut down and dismantled. It showed the personality of Keith Rowley because you hate someone, you're bitter about something, you rather mash it up than do what is right for the country. You can't be a good leader with that type of character.
Hey,
Mr. Griffith, if we don't get a grip of the situation now in Trinidad and Tobago, what do you think could happen?
Well, we Trinidad and Tobago could very well end up like Haiti, and we are heading there. People are concerned, people are migrating, the criminals have full control. And the reason now the criminals have become so brazen because they can shoot someone in cold blood in broad daylight and walk away knowing that the police will show up 40 minutes later. It's no fault of the police officers. They shut down all of the units, the systems, the technology that would have ensured an immediate response, and that is what pegged back the criminals just 2 years ago. So that is the reason why I offered to help this government, not because I like the PNM, but I love my country more than I'm a patriot more than a politician. And that's why I realized the country might not be able to hold on for another 15, 16 months until that general election comes out. And by that time, there's going to be so much work to clean up. But trust me, I have the package. I am ready for it. I don't even need a honeymoon period. As I said, as Commissioner of Police, I will hit that ground running. And all of the systems, the policies, the tools, the political will that is required, I did as a minister and Commissioner of Police, they are all going to be implemented within weeks. And the country will see the change. If the country can hold on and last, because it's bloodshed in the streets right now. We are speaking about getting close to 600 murders again in Trinidad and Tobago. 400, right now it's about 518. 465 have been by firearms. 464 of that 465 have been by illegal firearms. But all Fitzy Hines and Keith Rowley could speak about is legal firearms. It shows where these individuals' head is. It is not towards trying to fix crime. It is not towards saving the country. And I was providing law-abiding citizens with legal firearms to protect themselves because of the state's inability to protect them. And they're upset about that. It gives the impression that the government has more concern over the rights of criminals than that of law-abiding citizens. So if we can last another 16 months, it is going to be very difficult. The country is suffering, but hopefully this 16 months can pass as quickly as possible for us to get this country back on track.
Hey, Gary, what is the update with regard to that fellow who they went to Barbados and capture and bring back to Trinidad?
Not capture, kidnap.
Kidnap.
Well,
Kidnap.
again, these Trinidad and Tobago, because of the incompetence and the mistakes made by this government, Trinidad and Tobago is a 7-day wonder. You have an individual who was kidnapped by police officers, and the judge then says, I can't believe that these officers are still on active duty. And after the judge said that they're still on duty, so the police have basically said, look, don't care, you all stay right there. And let me tell you, as the minister, as a previous Minister of National Security, I can comprehensively confirm no police officer could have done that unless a politician had approved it. But jump high and jump through. Commissions of inquiry will be taking place on that. Commissions of inquiry will be taking place on that meritless fiasco where politicians broke the law and maybe even the president. So commissions of inquiry will take place, and it will take place within a few days, because that situation, the only way a police officer can leave the country on official duty is with the approval of the Minister of National Security. And that's why this investigation is being hidden, because certain politicians might very well have to account, why did you give approval for police officers to go out to kidnap a citizen of this country? That is where this country is reached right now.
So Gary, let me make sure I hear what you are saying. What you are saying is that in order for a police officer to leave Trinidad and Tobago and go to our next country, the Minister of National Security somehow have to sign off on that.
Not somehow. He has to, because remember, the commissioner, and that's a nice thing. I'm the only person in Trinidad and Tobago who ever wore the caps of being a commissioner of police and a minister of national security. The commissioner of police only has authorization to operationalize his officers in the jurisdiction of Trinidad and Tobago. Anytime they have to go outside of Trinidad and Tobago, you need the requisite approval from the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And that's so all the lies that the PNM is saying that they had nothing to do with it, that is a lie. So jump by jump low, McDonald Jacob would be pulling that commission of inquiry, and he would be asked, because if he decides to lie and say he did it on his own, he can now be arrested, because no police commissioner has authority to send any police officer on official duty outside of Trinidad and Tobago unless you have the approval from the Minister of National Security.
And should they have the approval of the government of Barbados too?
Yeah, definitely. You can't, because remember, the police officer from Trinidad and Tobago has no powers in Barbados unless he gets the approval from the government. So that is why he cannot travel unless it was approved. Because, and I mean, many simple things as well, because if you need a cabinet note, the cabinet note will eventually, because that is the only thing that will allow the officer now to get stipend, to have the payment made for the airfare or for the aircraft that was used, his allowances. So all of that, it must have government approval. So let us not be fooled to believe that these were just rogue police officers that did their own thing. They worked on instructions and a directive from the Commissioner of Police, who could only have done it based on the authorization from a minister in the government.
And the minister had to have the approval of the Prime Minister too?
Not necessarily. As the Minister of National Security, I will send out police officers, soldiers, even the Defense Force hockey team, just to play hockey in the Big Apple hockey tournament. You need approval from the Minister of National Security. But it then has to go to cabinet for payment to be made for the stipend and the allowances and so forth. So that is the point, that this must have a cabinet note, even if it is backdated, because sometimes you have an emergency, you need to get the person out immediately. But the minister must give at least verbal approval and then have it documented for that individual. So it means that, let me tell you something as simple as if the Prime Minister has to fly to Grenada, which is next door to Trinidad and Tobago, on a 2-day exercise or a meeting, and he has to go with 2 special branch officers, that must have a cabinet note to allow these officers to be paid, to allow them to get the airfare, to allow them to pay for the hotel. So the nonsense that the government is trying to fool to say that they had no involvement, that is a lie.
Well, Gary, we asked you for 15 minutes. You gave us double the time. You gave us 33 minutes. We appreciate it so much, man. Any closing words before you go? It's always a pleasure. Hey, Gary, one thing.
Not at all.
Gary, one thing.
Sure.
Let me say this, and anytime we call on you, so far you haven't let us down. All right? Yeah.
Well, and again, let me tell you what this has to do with it. If you're in public life, when I was the Minister of National Security and Commissioner, I was the most accessible person to the media. That is your job. You can't hide from the media. Unfortunately, this present Commissioner of Police, she has never had an interview. Well, I think she had one, and then a year later, she has refused to be with the media. You can't play mass and afraid powder. You have to face the media. You must make yourself accessible to the media and to the public who put you there, to the public who you serve. That is the way I'm cut. And again, the reason I'm able to do that is because of my military training, something that Keith Rowley does not understand how important that is as part of that could assist you in a productive manner to serve citizens of a country. The US knows that 31 of 45 presidents, military service. Keith Rowley, not one was a geologist.
Gary,
Mr.
what
Griffith, before you go, I want to ask you a very important question.
right, Tommy?
There was a sort of confrontational situation that took place between the leader of the THA and our Prime Minister a few months back. What's your opinion on it? I'm talking about.
What topic was that? There have been several between the both of them.
Yeah,
which one?
We were talking about the one where he made an allegation based on information was given to him by one of his islanders who supposedly was being coerced to undermine the THA.
Tommy, there have been plenty things undermining the THA, you know, to be honest with you.
Yeah, there have been quite a bit. But again, notice what again, every time with Keith Rowley, always there's been nothing where, he could smile, he could commend, he could thank, he could unite, he could build, he can be productive. It is always something with confrontation, argument, bitterness, hatred, animosity. The man is just naturally angry all the time. I am saddened, and again, I said it, I have been about 5 interviews so far today. I am very concerned that Keith Rowley is losing it. He's becoming very unstable, because if it is that you're so emotional and you must never make decisions, especially when you're serving others, when you are angry. Because when you're angry, you make the wrong decisions. He is making decisions based on anger. And this is a typical example here. What you spoke about with the THA is based on bitterness and anger, animosity, hatred. There's never one to say, let me unite, let me build, let me be productive, let me help. This situation here with the crime talks, because we don't have a PNM party card, you have to hate us, you have to be bitter with us. I mean, that is all that he does. Every time he speaks is that this one is a drunkard, this one drinking the rum, this one is a crook, this one is a thief. That is all he does. Smear campaign, character assassination, lies such as Emailgate, which is why in my situation, when it's only in a banana republic, a politician could expect to hire civilians, turn them into investigators, pay them big money, then get them to write a report that you might want, and then hope that you can read it out, and then get public to believe that it is true. That is what he tried to do with me. The court stopped it because he wanted to go to Parliament, because Parliament is the one place you can lie and not be sued. And that is what he does. He did it with Emailgate. He loves to go to Parliament because he's a coward. He cannot say anything outside in public because I will sue him for every cent he has. I have him in about a couple of cases already, and he will go on that witness stand and he will be thoroughly cross-examined because I will expose the man for who he is. Don't lie on Gary Griffith. Don't mislead the country. He spoke about massive corruption with firearms. 2 years later, not one firearm dealer, not one firearm holder, not one senior police officer has been arrested. It was full of lies. But this was the same Keith Rowley who was harassing me to organize a firearm dealership for his partner in Tobago to sell hundreds of firearms. This is the same Minister of National Security who was harassing me to get over a dozen firearms for persons closely affiliated with him. But then when I was providing firearms for the small man, the farmer, the sportsman, the small businessman to protect themselves, they had a problem. It says so much about this government. It seems that their concerns are more about the rights of criminal elements than those of law-abiding citizens.
Harry, now that your good friend has resigned as political leader of the PEP party, you see him as part of it, yeah?
let me tell you something. I take highly the persons around me. That is the last person that I will want. I would rather have some confrontation or conversation, with the PNM. If you listen to Philip Alexander, everything he said was, again, he was Keith Rowley reincarnated, bitter, angry, shouting, screaming, bad talking. You never want. And so Rowley and Philip Alexander, that was like a mini-me. And he said it. Philip Alexander said point blank, his job is to make sure that the UNC and the NTA never get in government. That was his job. But the fact of the matter is he went up for 50-odd seats, got 5,000 votes, average of less than 100 votes per seat. He lost his deposit, I think, in every single seat. He's a non-entity because the country is fed up. The country is fed up of politicians who just spit hate, anger, bitterness, attacking everyone. What Trinidad and Tobago wants is to see politicians who can unite rather than divide, who can be productive rather than to be negative and just to destroy. That is what the country wants to see, and they're going to get it from myself.
So
What
Gary,
leaders?
you think your former friend, your friend from the PEP, is in the political cemetery like another leader?
Oh no.
No, listen, he was never in the running in the first place. His job
Mm.
was just to hope that he could get 100 votes and hope that if it is that the NTA or the UNC could lose by about less than 100 votes, he would have done his job to ensure that the PNM keeps their seats. That's all he was. He was a non-entity from the start. Somebody that all you do is shout, attack, bad talk. So he was never in the running in the first place. So he was a virtual non-entity. I think the country understands fully what is going to happen in the general election. It is the PNM versus the rest, and the rest is the UNC and the NTA forming a very strategic alliance. As I said, every time a third party joins with the major opposition party, the PNM is defeated. I intend to ensure good governance, transparency, and to make sure that this country, all of the hatred, the bitterness, the anger, the division this country has seen because of politicians, I intend to do just the opposite and unite Trinidad and Tobago.
And Gary,
Mr. Griffith, I have one question for you, Mr. Griffith. There is speculation that should the UNC, come out victorious in the next general election, we will see a lot of infighting if they win with the alliance with yourself. What say you to that supposition?
Well, I don't know. Obviously, there would be people that would not want this because some people want to be big fish in small pond. Gary Griffith coming into the picture might peg persons back down the pecking order, but that shows the selfish by a few. The fact of the matter is that when a strategic alliance is formed, we are going to make sure this is united. We are not, the mistakes that would have been made in 2010 to 2015 wasn't because of the UNC. What I will say is because of the hierarchy of the Congress of the people that didn't do their job to make sure that those persons who they represented continue to be represented well. They turned a blind eye. They did not do what was required. I was in cabinet. I saw it. So I intend to make sure it is done. The good thing is that Kamala Prasad Biswas and myself, we have a very good relationship. We communicate several times a day, way before this alliance took place. And because of that communication, that good dialogue, that sense of trust and understanding, we are going to make sure this is going to be the most united government this country has ever seen.
Gary, before you go, I wanted to communicate to the political leader of the UNC. You see that diaspora initiative that you guys have, the NTA, right?
Yes.
We in the diaspora, and it is important for us here in the diaspora when we hear a political party, taking an initiative with respect to the diaspora. I think that initiative is a very important initiative for many of us here who live in the diaspora, especially when we're talking about exercising our right as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to vote. And I know that I have the Diaspora Initiative here by the young man. I don't remember the name of the guy, right?
Dr. Phillips.
Is Dr. Phillips?
Andre Phillips.
Right. That initiative. So just before you go, just make sure and communicate that to the political leader of the UNC about that Diaspora Initiative. So that's
and Mr. Griffith, make it easy for born Trinbagonians with your birth paper to be able to vote.
Let me tell you.
And a valid picture ID.
Sorry?
And a valid picture ID.
Yeah, but it'll be more than that. When I looked for the last 60 years in this country, since we've been independent, we have virtually turned a blind eye on persons who have the equal rights and privileges of citizens in Trinidad and Tobago. It doesn't change. The United States, they do it. When they have their election, persons anywhere in the world virtually, you have your constitutional, your right to vote.
Thank you.
Right is that we have it might be about 500,000 citizens of Trinidad and Tobago with a Trinidad and Tobago passport who live abroad, who have dual citizenship. So at times, some have a green card. And we are saying that you cannot vote because you do not live in Trinidad and Tobago. That is total nonsense. And let me tell you the reason for that. Because probably governments will be concerned that, listener, if I do that, there might be too many Indo-Trinidadians or Afro-Trinidadians or living abroad that might cost me that election. I don't care. You have a right equal to any citizen of this country. So what we would be doing is, well, I can't do it in 2025 because we're not in government, but as soon as we get in government for 2030 general election, even local government election, you have a passport, you have a proper address, you would be registered, and we will give you the accessibility to vote, whether it is in the high commissions in Miami, New York, Washington, Toronto, in Brazil, in Panama, in Costa Rica, in Venezuela, in China, in Geneva, and in London. We have all of our high commissions there. It will allow persons at 500,000 to go there. You vote, and your vote will be as equal as any vote of any citizen in Trinidad and Tobago, because you are a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago just as much as any citizen who lives in Trinidad and Tobago. The nonsense of you having to fly to come back home and have to spend 6 months here, that is, and I don't have to change any law because it is the law that gives you the right to vote. So
talk, Mr. Griffith. Talk, tell them. The next Prime Minister, Trinidad and Tobago, who don't like it, I say so, Gary Griffith. All you need to come up out of that stalemate and put Gary Griffith at the helm to take Trinidad and Tobago forward. I talk.
So, Gary, I tell you again, it's a pleasure. Any closing words before you go?
Not at all. I wish everyone the best. Be safe out there. We are trying our best to be safe here, but it is a jungle here in Trinidad and Tobago. Pray for us. We need it. We need the support of you all in diaspora, or throughout North America, Europe, all the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I wish you all the best. Be safe. Have a great. I hope you all are safe for the rest of the year, and we will continue to communicate as we go along.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. You have my vote.
All right.
Thank you very much. All the best.